What's up guys, my name is Ace, and we once again have traditional prestige in Black Ops 7, or at least close to a traditional prestige, just like we saw in Black Ops 6. And as a result, with this system, we are allowed one permanent unlock every time we prestige. So you can select any item you want through the progression to have unlocked permanently. So every time you prestige after that, that item will never relock itself. And I have had quite a few people asking me, what should I permanently unlock? What's worth spending a token on, especially early on in the game? And so today I'm going to be covering my top 10 permanent unlocks and what are likely going to be the 10 items that I permanently unlock as I work my way through the prestiges. And one really key thing to keep in mind here is I'm not a zombies player, so we're not going to be talking about any zombies items today. These are all going to be multiplayer only items that I'm looking at. Now, before we get into this, the first thing that's really important to know, which I'm sure most of you are already aware, but just in case you aren't, the amount of XP required to level up increases as your level increases. So going from level 1 to level 2 is going to require significantly less XP than going from level 54 to 55. And while I don't have the data available for Black Ops 7 specifically, I really don't think this general ratio has changed much at all in Call of Duty. It's just worked well from the beginning. And we do have the data from Black Ops 2 way back in the day, so I'm not saying this is exactly the same in Black Ops 7, but I'd bet that it's similar enough to this that this can still be used as a great general rule of thumb. And with this, something you might find quite surprising is the halfway point on your grind from level 1 to 55 is actually right around level 41. So it might seem like you're getting really close to level 55 once you're at 41, but at that point, you're only halfway there. And then just to break that up a little bit farther here, the first 25% of your XP will take you all the way up to level 31. And so for me, that's what I consider to be a pretty hard cutoff point, with maybe an exception or two. If there's just something you absolutely can't live without that's around level 30, maybe we can make an exception for that. And I'll talk about that in a little bit as we go through these. But I mainly wanted to point this out for you guys so you're not wasting a permanent unlock token on something that's unlocked at like level 20, for instance, because you get to level 20 very, very quickly. Additionally, another key thing to point out here with the modern prestige system, it was the same last year with Black Ops 6, this is weapon blueprints. If you get a blueprint for a weapon, it effectively permanently unlocks that weapon for you. And as a result, I'm generally pretty hesitant to spend a permanent unlock token on a gun in the game, because especially once we get to Season 1 and beyond, blueprints are just going to start rolling in for like all of the guns in the game, and therefore, naturally, these are going to be permanently unlocked for you, likely fairly quickly in most of these cases. So generally speaking, I would avoid spending a permanent unlock token on a weapon unless it's a weapon that you just really, really want, especially if it's a very late unlock. And that's actually what I ended up spending my first permanent unlock token on. Back in Black Ops 2, I was a huge fan of the MSMC, and the counterpart to that, or at least the somewhat lookalike to that, is the MPC-25, and this just happens to be the final unlock throughout your prestige. It's unlocked at level 55. And since it's such a late unlock, I have a gun guide series to complete as well, and I really like the MSMC. I actually decided to spend my first permanent unlock token on this, just so I've always got it available. It does kick like a mule. I think a lot of people aren't going to be a big fan of this SMG in its current state, so I'm not saying I necessarily recommend this. I just wanted to point out what I use my first unlock token on. And now let's get into my plans for future permanent unlock tokens. And I already know what I'm going to be using my next one on for sure. This is the Specialist wildcard, unlocked very late at level 53, so that's part of the reason. But another part of the reason is I just absolutely love Specialists, and I'm sure most of you guys that have been around for a long time know that. I was begging for this to come back in Modern Warfare 2022 and Modern Warfare 2023, and it never happened. Well, we've got it in a Treyarch game now, which is quite interesting. But I just love, at least on some of my classes, having the ability to turn myself into a super soldier by earning perks as I go on a streak rather than my score streak rewards. And since it is quite a late unlock, this is an absolute no-brainer for me. However, in saying that, I don't want to be using Specialist on every single loadout that I use. And as a result, the next permanent unlock that I plan on using is actually on the Perk Greed wildcard. And this one isn't unlocked particularly late. You get it at level 33. But for me at least, I really like Perk Greed. It is my favorite wildcard outside of maybe Specialist now. And if I'm not using a Specialist loadout, chances are I'm most likely wanting to use a Perk Greed loadout with 4 perks instead of 3. And I just think it would be really nice to not have to feel like I'm sacrificing one of the perks that I would normally like to use for the first 25 to 30% of my leveling of every prestige. So that's why I'd like to get this unlocked early on as well, so I'm not stuck using something like Overkill or Danger Close, where I really don't care about those much at all. As for the next one I plan on unlocking, this is Ninja. And while in the game's current state, I don't really feel like Ninja is necessary in most respawn game modes where there tends to be a lot more noise and action going on, and if you do die, you just hit the respawn button and it's fine. At the end of the day, Ninja is still a very nice perk to at least have available and ready to go. If you notice somebody is clearly relying on sound a lot in your lobby, it's nice to be able to just pop this on your class and now you suddenly countered their playstyle. Or, of course, if you're a non-respawn player, if you play Search and Destroy, for instance, this should probably be your first unlock because you should always be using the quieter footstep perk in a one life mode where footstep audio really comes into play a lot more. Now after that, for the next one, I'm really leaning toward the Harp Score Streak unlocked at level 47, simply because if I am using streaks and not specialist, I tend to lean in the direction of streaks that don't really get in the way of me just getting more kills with my gun. Like streaks that don't take me out of the fight, and the Harp is excellent for this because I can just call it in, and now it just makes it that much easier to get more kills with my gun, and continue building that streak up as well. Now, as for the next one, this is going to be a big exception here. And we're once again getting into the wildcard category. This is Gunfighter. And honestly, some of you guys might want to unlock this even earlier on than I will. But the reason this one is an exception is it's unlocked at level 29. It really doesn't take all that long to get to level 29. And that's why this isn't going to be one of my earlier unlocks. But at the end of the day, I am going to want this permanently unlocked at some point. Simply because I'm anticipating, at least, there are going to be several guns in this game that really excel with Gunfighter and perhaps struggle without Gunfighter, like guns that just rely on a lot of attachments. And therefore, having Gunfighter always unlocks just makes sure that I always have those optimal builds available at any given time. And honestly, those are all the permanent unlocks I really want to focus on the most. The rest of these, I don't mind waiting a little bit, but I will eventually probably spend my permanent unlocks on them just because they are fairly late unlocks. And the next one I've got here is just going to be the Looper perk. This one is unlocked very, very late at level 54. And while I definitely don't plan on using it on a ton of my loadouts, it's just something that I'd like to actually play around with a little bit. And there's really not much time to play around with it if I'm blasting through prestiges when it's unlocked at level 54. That only gives me a brief window of time to try that out before I'm prestiging and relocking it again. It's a similar story with my next permanent unlock here as well. This is the Guardian perk. Once again, it's just a very late unlock at level 50. And I would like to have this available to use far more often than just that last 5 levels of my prestige as I'm blasting through those prestiges. And I could definitely see myself using Guardian from time to time at least, or on specific loadouts where I'm just really going to be playing the objective super hard. And this just brings us into the final 2 permanent unlocks that I'm considering here. And these are both late unlock score streaks. These are at the VTOL Warship, just because I quite liked using it in the beta, and I'd like to be able to use that a fair amount, as well as the Interceptors. That's something where, now that we have persistent lobbies, if I'm in a really tough competitive lobby and I want to stick through it and have that rematch and I know the enemy is going to be calling in some streaks, well, it's nice to be able to earn those interceptors and just shut them down. And there we have it. That's going to wrap it up for the top 10 permanent unlock tokens that I plan on using for Black Ops 7's multiplayer. Of course, as time goes on and as we learn more about the game, I may adjust the order of some of these a little bit here or there, but those are the ones that I'm eyeing up at the moment, and this is where I'm curious to hear from you guys in those comments down below. What are the permanent unlocks that you're planning on going for first? Maybe just like your top 3 or top 5. Just let me know down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.